a rich man's world. I have turned the soul of this beautiful land, but the beauty.
Room and your dining room.
Yeah, what's this place?
It's a sound stage.
Can we go down there? Dad, this is a very sensitive subject.
From the first time the doctor placed you in my arms, I knew I'd meet death before I let you meet harm. Although questions arose in my mind, would I be man enough against wrong? Choose right and be standing up. From the hospital that first night, took an hour just to get the car seated right. People driving on fast got me kind of upset. Got you home safe, placed you in your bassinet. That night, I don't think one wink I slept. As I slipped out my bed to your crib, I crept, touched your head gently. Felt my heart melt, cause I knew I loved you more than life itself. Into my knees, and I begged the Lord, please let me be a good daddy. All he needs, love, knowledge, discipline too. I pledge my life to you. Just the two of us, we can make it if we try. Just two of us, just the two of us, building castles in the sky. Just the two of us, you and I. 5 years old, bringing comedy. Every time I look at you, I think, man, a little me, just like me. We can see, wanna be tall, makes me laugh, cause you got your dad's ears and all. Sometimes I wonder, what you gonna be? A general, a doctor, maybe an MC. I wanna kiss you all the time, but I will test that butt when you cut out a line. True that, why you do that? I try to be a tough dad, but you been making me laugh, crazy joy. When I see the eyes of my baby boy, I pledge to you, I will always do everything I can, show you how to be a man. Dignity, integrity, honor, and I don't mind if you lose, long as you came with it. And you can cry, ain't no shame in it. It didn't work out with me and your mom, but yo, push come to shove, you was conceived in love. So if the world attacks and you slide off track, remember one fact, I got your back. Just the two of us, we can take it if we try. Just two of us, just the two of us. Just the two of us, building castles in the sky. Just the two of us, you and I, yeah. It's a full-time job to be a good dad. You got so much more stuff than I had. I gotta study just to keep with the changing times. 101 Dalmatians on the CD-ROM. See me, I'm trying to pretend I know on my PC where that CD go. But yo, ain't nothing promised. One day I'll be gone, feel the strike, but trust life does go on. But just in case, it's my place to depart. One day some girl's gonna break your heart, and ooh, ain't no pain like from the opposite sex. Gonna hurt bad, but don't take it out on the next, son. Throughout life, people will make you mad, disrespect you and treat you bad. Let God deal with the things they do, cause hate in your heart will consume you too. Always tell the truth, say your prayers, hold doors, pull out chairs, easy on the swears. You're living proof that dreams come true. I love you and I'm here for you. Just the two of us, we can make it if we try. Just two of us, just really you. Just the two of us, building castles in the sky. Just the two of us, you and I. True that, true that. Just the two. Daddy loves you. Daddy loves you. For the rest of your life.
I didn't realize that song. I'm sure Mom can pay for this, Dad.
Yes, yes, yes. Welcome to the WUAO and Hour show. I'm your host, Michael Phelps from the WUAO and Hour group. As I always state, that WUAO and Hours is a communication and informational group. We bring information, we bring education, but we also talk about solutions. Solutions are very important because within the problem, within the problem is where the solution reside in. So as I state again, I'm Michael Phelps, your host. I'll let my king introduce himself. Okay, you have the topic, everybody. You want to read the topic out for us?
Topic of today is I'm a father, you're a father. What did we learn about growing up in a fatherless home?
So what? I had some questions up underneath there. Did you ever get them?
Yes. We'll start with question number one. Our moms weren't fond of our dad's actions when making promises he didn't keep. How did we deal with the fact that our moms weren't fond of our dad's actions when they made promises that they
didn't keep it? Because they always looked at our faces and felt how we felt, and they took it personal.
Yes.
Now, how they interpret the information to us might have been where it could be where we made we have taken on the personality of what our mom felt towards our fathers. And because it is very important, mothers pay attention to how they explain when their dad is not there or not doing something, because that does affect the child. And sometimes the child don't even know that that's what's going on. That's just something that a mother informs a child. And I'm not saying they do it intentionally. And, and they can say, well, we're just doing it because we're trying to be truthful. But that does affect the child. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, there's two sides. Yes, there are mothers out there who like to give a slanted view of the fathers in the life of the child. But then there are mothers out there who try to give what they perceive as to be a truth about father, but from their perception, how they perceive, which is what you kind of pointed out.
Yeah.
But I believe that I'm not going to say that every mother has ill intent, because when mothers love their children, of course, they're very protective of their children. So therefore, they want their children to be informed about what they believe to be the truth.
Yeah.
But like you pointed out, though, it's how you communicate that truth that's important. You can communicate the truth without doing damage.
Yeah.
It's when you communicate truth and you do damage at the same time. You do demolition.
Yes.
And that's the lie, because the thing is that, every child ought to have an opportunity to formulate their own opinion concerning both parents.
Yes.
Okay, but we're talking about fathers today, so
yes.
We're going to focus on that.
Yes.
Every child should be given an opportunity to formulate their opinion concerning their father. So, of course, the mother who's there having to, like you said, having to see the sad face, they're the ones that are there having to deal with the broken pieces that are left after a promise is broken.
Yes.
When the child is saying, well, where's dad? How come dad didn't come pick me up? How come dad didn't do this? How come dad didn't do that? Or dad told me we were going to do this together or that together. And the mom has to pick up the broken pieces. Initially the mom might say, well, your dad had a couple of things to do, this, that, the other. Then she gets to a point, she gets pretty irritated. She's like, you know what? Your dad is a no good. Can't keep his word. That's why he ain't, now we start doing that, now you're doing demolition.
Yeah.
Oh, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And I understand the frustration. When we do make promises to our kid is constantly questioning the mom, where's dad at? When he's coming? When is that? So eventually that's going to wear, it's going to do some wear and tear.
Right.
And so then there has to be some cognitive awareness. So the mother's going to end up telling the child what's really going on. But it's, I don't, does she tell it from a point of reference of
Damage control.
for damage control, or she's saying it because she's frustrated and it's emotional, and sometimes that emotional stance might be the point that what causes it to become more detrimental, not instrumental.
Right. No, I agree with that. I'm not gonna go too far into emotion. That's one of our questions. So we'll get down there, but that is definitely a part. That is where most of the damage is done.
Mm-hmm.
Is when we start to communicate from an emotional position instead of a
logical,
helpful position.
Yeah. Logical approach.
Again, we want to, when it comes to relationships, of course, you should want to help preserve and not destroy.
Yes.
Now, if destruction is going to be done, it shouldn't be done on your watch.
Yes.
If the father destroys that relationship with their child, then it's on their watch, but not on your watch. Because the thing to remember is this. Because when I think back, and I'm gonna give you an example of what I'm talking about, so this makes more sense. Like I use my mother as an example when it concerned my father. Okay. I'll say this. My father was not able to be there in my life for the majority of my life. My father, like so many other
Black
brothers,
was
in prison. So my father spent all of my childhood in prison. However, my father made many promises, and he had good intentions. When I get out, I'm gonna come get you. We're gonna be together. We're gonna do this and do that. And he would always tell me this. He called, and he never told me. My father never told me that he wasn't getting out. It took my mother to tell me that he wasn't getting out, but she let it go on for a little while, and she eventually told me that he wasn't getting out. But she did that because she first gave him an opportunity to tell me, and she didn't want to damage my relationship with my father,
or make you see him differently.
Right. So she didn't want to paint that picture.
Yeah. And there's a lot of women that there are a lot of women like that who believes that I don't want to intervene. If the child's going to find out, let them find out on their own. And then you got those who are just so bitter, who hate the father so much that any opportunity they get, they're going to throw jabs, or throw shade, or throw him under the bus. So you have the two different types of parents.
And the problem,
women.
And the problem with that is that it eventually backfires.
Yeah, eventually it does.
Because the child ends up hating you for painting a picture of their father this way. Especially when they learn the truth for themselves, and maybe they don't see it the way the mom saw it. Now they're mad at the mom because of this picture that this Picasso that the mom painted in the child's mind concerning their father. And then when they came to a realization of their own Picasso, with their own emotions, their own perception, through their own senses, everything that they heard, everything that they saw, everything they felt, everything they tasted, everything, now, everything they smell. Now through their own five senses, they came to their own realization and they came to realize, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. Okay. Well, you see this about your father? No, but look, I don't see that. You see that. If that makes sense. And your emotions, you see that. The child doesn't see that. And the thing is that that's the thing that we have to be. That's the thing where they have to be really careful about painting the picture in that child's mind without allowing that child to paint their own picture. At one point, you teach a child how to cross the street when they're in kindergarten. Eventually, they have to learn how to cross the street on their own. What you do is you walk them to the curb, you hold their hand, and you help them look both ways. But eventually, when they go out and play or whatever the case may be, or going to get a ball from out the street, or the case may be, they have to learn to cross some streets on their own, and you have to allow that.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with relationships. You at one point, okay, you dictate, you protect, but when they get to a point where they can start thinking for themselves, you back off.
Yeah.
And you allow them to come to their own conclusions.
And it's almost like when you're allowing your emotions to take center stage in a child's life and to get them to see a narrative about their father, it's almost like you have walked the child across the street and you told the child to look both ways, but then you forgot that you giving a child something to play with. You give him a ball. Now he's trying to cross the street with a ball, dribbling a ball. Now the ball flees from his hand. He immediately just goes straight after. He used non-logic. He goes from an emotional point. Say, I got to go get my ball. I want to retrieve my ball. And he just dives out in the middle of the street without paying attention. And that's sometimes what happens when we are teaching our children certain things, that we have to be cognizant of that, because you got to make sure that there's always going to be things that's going to come up that's going to distract that child from understanding the truth. And they're going to look at you and then they're going to run out and run out and figure it out for themselves. And then, you know what? Chasing that ball, end up getting them hit. And then he ended up finally learn that, okay, once that ball gets out of my hand next time, I'm just going to let it go. But how many children is able to how many children are able to have that experience where they can come back and learn from that? Some don't come back.
That's where, let's go to number two.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're starting to venture off at number two, so I want to
Okay.
get everybody caught up. So question number two is how to handle our emotions, and that's what we're talking about right now.
Yes.
How we handle our emotions is so very important, because emotions oftentimes is what blinds us.
Yes.
Emotions is what, if you ever heard the old saying, can't see the forest for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And that simply means is you can't get a wider vision of what's going on because of where you're focused.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes that is what gets in the way of these relationships, because we're hyper focused on how we feel about a certain thing or about a certain person.
Mm-hmm.
So and it kind of goes along with your example that you used about the child playing with the ball, and then the ball gets out of his hand, and instead of thinking about it, he or she responds emotionally.
Immediately.
And
yes.
immediately just going to chase the ball and don't bother looking both ways, because for them it's like, no, this isn't a thinking thing, this is an emotional thing. Okay, I'm without my ball. How I feel about the fact that I no longer have my ball, and those are the things.
And that's how they feel about not having a father.
Exactly.
I don't have my father, so I'm just rushing out there, and then I'm gonna grab anything. And most time, children reflect. Children want what they have. That ball is very precious to them because it's close to them. So a father is still close to him, even though they don't. He's not there. And same as the mother, because that's still part of DNA.
Right.
That's everybody's DNA. That you still want to know your DNA.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, just because a father is not physically present doesn't mean a father is not in the mind of that child.
Or spiritually there. Yeah.
Especially when they start going to school.
Yeah.
And when they start going to school and everybody else is talking about their fathers,
mm-hmm.
then they realize, wait a minute, my classmates have a father, where's mine?
Or be at the family get together.
Right.
And other kids
have
that,
where's my father?
Yeah.
And then they feel like, okay, well, then those emotions come in. Oh, you ran my father off, or my father's not here because of you, or you paint this horrible picture. You're the reason why my father don't come around. And then
or you wouldn't let me see. You won't let me see my father.
You won't let me see my father
because you didn't want. You thought his lifestyle he was doing wasn't good. Wasn't safe for me or us to be around. And sometimes that could be the case. But a father has to learn responsibility just like a mother. Because if you think about it, a mother don't know how to be a mother until she's put in a predicament. You can't say a father is because he's in the street, that don't mean he's going to put his kids in the street. He might take them around once, and then he'll figure out, okay, no, I got too much going on. I can't be bringing my children out here like
Mature
that.
father would do that.
You know, mature fathers do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just like mature mothers supposed to do that, and you know, they don't bring their children around certain things. But as we know, there's a lot of immature both parents. And you know, and so you got to give each person chance for accountability to figure that thing out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because all of us are not. None of us was born with instructions,
Right.
and we all have to figure that thing out.
Mm-hmm.
I know it comes out the womb. I know it comes out your womb, but we planted that seed in you. So it's just as our child as your child, and we have to work together, no matter if we are together or not together. This is important. This is why it's so important to use logic, but use emotion too, because sometimes emotion makes you see a bigger picture. But you have to venture into the logical state too.
Well, yeah, I mean, emotion, since we're talking about emotion right now, emotion can be good or bad.
Yes.
Emotion can be good when you want what's best for somebody, and because of how you feel about them, you make decisions. All your decisions are based on what you believe is best for that person, and you do your best to, like a mother who's trying to promote their child, promote their career, promote the best out of them. Okay?
Yeah.
However, emotion can be bad when you're tearing them down or you're tearing down someone who's important to them down. That's where emotion can do damage. So carrying emotion is good. Damaging emotion is bad. Damaging emotion is bad, but we have to know the difference. And oftentimes, I believe that we don't always know the difference between carrying emotion and damaging emotion.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm not.
You can continue. I'm just trying to.
Okay. So, and so when we think about carrying emotion is more like, as a parent, like you said, we're not given a book on this.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Everyone has a different way, a different approach when it comes to parenting.
Yes.
But it should all be the same goal. That it should all be for the good of the child.
Exactly.
That's what should be going on in everybody's playbook. No matter what playbook you playing from, in your playbook, the end goal, the highest goal should be what's best for the child. Do you think it's best for your child to be exposed to alcohol? I would say not. Do you think it's best for your child to be exposed to drugs?
Mm-hmm.
I would say not.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's best for your child, especially if she's a young lady, sitting around a lot of men?
Mm-hmm.
I would say not. These are things, and those are just a few examples of things where, as a parent, when you're as a mother thinking about their child, son or daughter, okay, and the father's not in the equation.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a fine balancing act.
Yeah.
Okay, but I would say this is that where fathers are a little bit more attuned when it comes to danger, though.
Yeah.
Mothers are a little bit more trusting sometimes. I'm not saying this. I'm not saying that's for every mother, so I don't want anybody to be angry.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that sometimes mothers can be a little too trusting, especially if they're trying to have a warm body in their bed. Okay, and so you assume that whoever this man is that you bring into the home, he's going to automatically be a good influence on your child, and he may not necessarily be a good influence on your child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but a man, on the other hand, especially if they have daughters, no, they don't.
Yeah.
they don't play that.
And the way today's society is, it doesn't matter if it's a daughter or a boy. a young boy if they feel like that young boy has some type of deficiencies or something that they can take advantage of them, they're gonna take advantage of them because because there's actually a lot of times they don't do the statistics, they don't show you the statistics. More boys are being molested as much as young women are. So,
which is sad.
and most boys won't tell because of the pride thing.
Right.
So, so it is a lot of things. That's why, it's important we have good fathers in our community to come back home and fix the broken legs on the table. The table is the instrument of salvation. It's an instrument of reconciliation. It's an example of redemption. When a father's home, he can revise everything that we messed up. If he takes his physical form properly, he takes a stance on his God. He's got to put God ahead of everything. I come in my home. I let God guide my household. I stay under the institution of what God says and how I'm supposed to act and conduct myself. And when he does that, man, you bring all them things that we're missing today back to the house.
Order.
And that's order. And that's discipline. That's communication. That's consistency. That is a true commitment. Protection. All those things. What we deal with today, we have a lot of boys who aren't even mature enough because they ain't got nothing to mimic. What they're mimicking is what we deemed as our Bible now. Men of the streets. The streets is our Bible today. We left and threw the Bible away, and we took the streets' advice to raising and to doing everything in our homes. So guess what we got in our homes now? Street values. A lot of men's running around. Why do you think they go in and out of prison? Because they listen to the streets. And knowing they got 3 or 4 kids out here. And then you're trying to make promises to the kid while you locked up. When you're locked up, you want to do right because guess what? You have nothing but to do but to self-reflect. As a father, you ain't seeing them growing up. You miss that, that they don't, when you're trying to talk to them on the phone, they get in on the phone real quick and want to get off. That hurts your feelings.
That was, and again, that's still talking about that number 2 that we're talking about right now. That's still talking about emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Fathers have emotion too.
Yes.
They don't always know how to show it. They don't know how to demonstrate it.
And they don't know how to.
It comes out often. It comes out as anger.
Yeah.
Frustration.
Yes. And especially when there's rejection.
Yes.
A father cannot accept rejection. Men cannot accept rejection.
And the reason why men, I believe, have the hardest time accepting rejection is because of that pride.
Yes.
It's all about, with men, saving face is big when it comes to men. Women are a little bit more versatile in that area.
Yeah.
They're not as sensitive.
Yeah.
To that as men are.
Yeah. They're not solid in that area, in that aspect.
Yeah,
Men,
they're a little bit more mature.
they're passive.
When it comes to that right there, but that pride, it's the killer of our men. It's the killer of our fathers.
Yes. And then sometimes that pride is good, and sometimes like you said, anything that's been overly possessed, it's going to when it takes overly take possession of you, it's not good for you. You have to know how to do checks and balance, and sometimes true maturity is checks and balance.
Absolutely.
And we don't do that a lot.
100%. We have to reach a level where we have just enough of this or enough of that, and like you said, it's like a scale.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as you see the scale starting to go out of balance, whether it be because of the decisions that you're making, because of how you feel,
mm-hmm.
And here's an example of what I'm talking about. If a father's on his job and he's angry with his boss, okay, of course there's an emotion there. Of course, pride tries to come in. And you ain't gonna talk to me in any kind of way. I'm a man first. You hear that quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then that scale that scale starts to get out of balance. Make sense?
Mhm.
And when that scale gets out of balance, now you got to bring that scale back into balance. In other words, you got to reel those emotions in.
Yeah.
And consider, wait a minute, I ain't got time to be quitting my job because of my emotions. I ain't got time to be quitting my job because of my pride. Why? Because I got a family at home I got to take care of.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? If you're out in the street and trouble comes your way, again, you got to think about the same thing. Wait a minute, I ain't got time to allow my pride to rise up and cause me to make a bad decision that's going to take me away from that has the potential of taking me away from my family, either permanently or even temporarily. Because once now I'm moved out the house, okay, then my family is now exposed to the elements.
Yeah.
They no longer have the protection. They no longer have the father's protection. So now they're exposed to the rain. They're exposed to the hail. They're exposed to the wind. They're exposed to everything, all the troubles, because you can no longer be there to protect them. And then if you do end up doing time, now you're in even more of an emotional state.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah. What's number 3?
Number 3. So we just finished up with emotion number 3. Being a man of integrity and a man of our word.
Yeah, well, and that's something we lacking in our community, because we didn't have enough men to show us what integrity is and what our word is. Now, when we was growing up, we had one person that hammered and drilled that into us every day. You got to be an integral, and you got to be a man of your word. You came over here, you asked me for something. You say you're gonna do this at this. You say you're gonna pay it back at this time. You say you're gonna do this at this time. I expect you to do that. And we had to hear a lecture before we even got anything. And that lecture taught us about integrity, and it taught us about being a man of our word. And and I ain't saying that I'm 100% man of my word, because unforeseen things happen, or sometimes pure laziness might kick in. Because sometimes you get lazy, you just don't want to do something, but your heart wants to do it.
Right.
So I can't never just say it's just something, circumstances came up. Sometimes just mere laziness or just mere exhaustion kicks in.
I guess the way I would approach that is our value system. It's when it comes to integrity, which what we're talking about is a value system.
Yes.
Really, what we're talking about is what we value more over something else.
Yes.
And so when we talk about being too tired. When we're talking about doing things that help hold the family together or destroys the family. Okay, we're talking about a word. We're talking about, oftentimes that's what mothers are angry about when it comes to fathers. Okay, you chose to do that. You chose to hang with your homeboys instead of being home.
Yes.
You chose to be with that chick instead of keeping your word to your son or keeping your word to your daughter.
You said you was gonna, the child needs milk, needs Similac and Pampers, but you chose to go hang out with your boys and drink and smoke.
So you drank all the money away that you could have used for the Pampers, the diapers, the Similac, whatever the case may be. And that's the thing.
And now you got to walk around with your head down,
right,
with no pride,
right,
because you swindled your money away,
right,
and on fraudulent things,
right,
for a temporary high,
right,
or a temporary luxury,
right,
and not for the benefit of raising and being a responsible dad and setting forth boundaries and without measure principles within your household.
Exactly.
That's what happens with us as men. And that's why fathers are important. When we say fathers, we ain't talking about dads. There's a difference between a dad and a father. We got to remember we're talking about fathers. We ain't talking about dads. Because anybody could be a dad. But everybody is not a father. So we got to remember there's two different definitions of those two things. And I'm glad we talking about this subject, because this is a very important subject, because we grew up without fathers, and how that affected us in many ways. Because now what it did, it made us go into adulthood. As we became dads, we had to go through trials and tribulation to become fathers.
Because we suffered from deficits.
Yes.
we lacked some things.
Lacked a lot of things.
Right. We had our mothers there, and our mothers,
only could give us one side.
Right. But when I think all the time about how I had to learn how to work on cars.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn, because I'd go into an advanced auto parts or an old riders, whatever the case may be. And I remember when I first started off, I had to go in there asking a whole lot of questions. And I remember, I like it, very vividly. A guy said, he said, "Didn't your father teach you these things?" And I was hurt by that. But and I was like, "Look, I just need you to answer my question." But I had to endure that in order to learn what I need to learn, and that's what you're talking about. Is that we had to make up, we had to somehow fill in the gaps of those deficits. We're gonna get to more of some of those deficits when we get further down to some of our other questions. So I don't want to get too far ahead. However, so as we finish up and we go into the next, unless you have something else you want to add about the integrity of the man and his word, we're gonna go now into work ethics. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll let you go ahead and start off with that.
Well, and being a man of integrity is one of the most important things, is your work ethics. Is because it is one of the areas that push you in the position of being a provider. It puts you in a position of being a protector. Because when you're able to provide, you're able to protect. Them two go hand in hand. A lot of people don't know that. Because once you're able to provide and you feel comfortable providing, you're strong enough to protect. Because your mindset is there. But when you can't provide for your family, you don't feel like you can protect them as well as you want to. And that's what happens with a lot of dads. When they can't provide for their children like they want to, they don't feel like they can protect them the way they need. They can protect them physically, but this protection doesn't just go in one area.
Oh, no.
It goes in multiple areas.
Financial, emotional,
Mm-hmm.
psychological.
Yes.
So safety is in there, self-esteem is in there.
Yes. And
a sense of belonging.
And a sense of belonging. And if a man walks in a house and his wife is throwing jaggers at him like, we need the light just got cut off. They sending me letters saying they about to come repo our car. Right. How do you think that man is going to walk around? Do you think he is feeling like he's protecting his home?
No, he's gonna feel like he's less than.
And guess what he gonna end up doing? Abandon.
He's gonna go right, or he either gonna do one or two things. Either he's gonna abandon or go to the street and try to make ends meet, to try to get things done because he's trying to provide. However, that is only a short-term fix.
Yes.
It's not a long-term fix because of everything that comes along with it.
Yeah.
Because when you go out to the street and you try to make things happen in a way that may not necessarily be legal, then you for a temporary fix, whether it be to keep the lights on, whether it be to make rent, whether it be to get school clothes, or whatever the case may be, and you go out there and you engage in some things, and then you turn around, you get caught, or whatever the case may be. Now, what you intended to do came with some negative consequences.
Yeah.
So now you're no longer you may have fixed it for the moment, but for the long term, you set yourself back 10 paces. Does that make sense?
Yes. And even if you went out to the street, say hypothetically, the lights got cut off, the water got cut off, and you was able to go out there and hustle today to get the lights and the gas back on. You got to hustle again. You got to hustle some more to keep the lights on continually.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you got to constantly find yourself in a hustle. And you're going to take short changes all the time.
Exactly. So
And that's why people end up killing people. They take a value of $1 too personal because they have to hustle you to get that dollar because they need it real bad.
right.
You know, just like how you give somebody some money,
Desperation.
you don't give nobody something that you know you need.
Right.
You give them, if you were able to, if I loaned you $100, that means that I don't need that $100.
Right.
I'm going to give it to you, but if you say you're going to pay me back, I'm expecting it to come back. Sometimes when a person don't have it, it becomes desperate and they need that money back. They're going to do whatever they got to do to get that money back. I don't care if it's $10.
Mm-hmm.
And they will hurt you to get that, just that little $10 back.
Mm-hmm.
Because that $10 took a lot of hustle.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
And like I said, it becomes, like you said, it can become very volatile.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot goes into that. On the receiving end and on the giving end. Because on the receiving end, yeah, that person might benefit from the $10 that you loaned them, gave them, whatever the case may be, with the expectation that they're going to get back.
Mm-hmm.
But then it takes integrity for if a person says, hey, you know what? I need you to loan me 10 today and I get back to you next week when I get paid. Okay. Next week comes, you get paid, and instead of valuing your word, you say, well, I'm gonna take that $10, I'm gonna spend it over here, and so can just wait. Well, that's not the right attitude. That's not operating from a sense of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Because you really what you ought to do, and this is what my uncle, his grandfather taught us when it came to borrowing money from him. And you mentioned it earlier. When it came to borrow money, he said you had to keep your word. The word was bond.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you were going to give that money back by a certain time. You need to give that money back by a certain time. However, he always gave us a way out.
Yeah.
And the way out was this: if you're not able to get my money back, when you say you're going to be able to get my money back, then I'm going to need you to have a conversation with me ahead of time to let me know. Then that way, I can extend it out. So if you have that, all you had to do was just have that conversation. It was good. Well, those are the kind of things that we miss with each other. That's part of that integrity. Because instead of doing the right thing by going and having a conversation with the person,
we just polite and
we
avoid.
hide from them, or we just disregard them altogether. They take that as disrespect, especially men. Take that as disrespect, and now you got a different problem on your hands. And then go ahead.
And you know what? And the funny part is, even during these processes, as man, I used to be one of the type of guy that wanted to go after you when you didn't do what you say you're gonna do if I gave you something. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn, that it's gonna hurt them more than it's gonna hurt me. And that's what Grandpa was teaching us. Mm-hmm. He said it's gonna hurt you more than it's gonna hurt me, because when you come back when you really need it again, the doors are shut. He wouldn't do that with his kids. He if he knew you really need it, he would go pay for it and not give it to you. That was one of his things. All right, well, just give me the bill. I'll go down and pay it. I'm not putting the money in your hand. That's how he did things. But there was a long lecture with that, and there was and you had to, and you didn't want to come around them no more and ask for anything no more because you knew you messed up.
Oh man, you didn't even want to be in his presence.
Yes.
You see him coming, you want to walk on the opposite side of the street.
Exactly.
You couldn't walk with your head high because you knew
you
owed him money.
Especially if you was a man.
Yeah, you knew.
Yes.
And that's the thing. It's like we all know. That's the thing. That's the funny part. Is that we all know.
We do.
I think a man doesn't know that he didn't break a promise to his child. He knows.
He knows.
You think a man doesn't know when he didn't quit his job and he's trying to hide from the wife or hide and say, "Oh, I'm going to work," and you ain't really going to work. You know.
And you know, a man knows when if he has to walk in the house and his wife or his girl got to tell him the trash needs to be taken out.
Right.
You know, the bills is coming up.
Right.
And he knows.
Right.
And, you know, he just, you know.
Values, the problem is when you value other things over what you should be valuing first. In other words, sometimes our biggest struggle as men is prioritizing things.
Yeah.
Putting first things first.
We want to look good.
We want to look good first.
We want to look good first. And that's why we'll fix our cars up, do all these things to look good for other people, because it's not really for the home.
No.
It's for yourself.
Yeah.
So you can have access to those things out there in the world.
Right.
And that's why I said the streets became our Bible.
Right.
Because we want to impress the streets. And we go by its rules.
Right. We let, and I love the way you're putting that, Mike, is that what we do is we allow the streets to determine our value.
Yes.
And that is when we talk about how we, us, and ours starts off as families, and then those families turn into communities. Your value first should be in your home.
Yes.
And then your value, which is in your home, then spills onto the street and it turns into communities.
Yes.
And when you have enough families that come together who has value in their homes first, in other words, they're doing what must be done in the home first.
Yes.
They're teaching their children first. Their parents are being responsible first. The fathers are, since we're talking about fathers today, the fathers are responsible at home first. Then they go out to the street, and now they can help others because of what they've already been in practice of doing at home first.
And the hardest thing is to focus on the things that's going to hold you accountable first.
Yes.
Your wife, your kids, your family, they are the hardest to please because they know you inside. They know you inside and out.
Yes.
So why you think guys will run off and try to be in the community? Why you think they try to run off and go save other communities or be in other organizations? Because guess what? You can go over there and be who you want over there.
They don't know you.
They don't know you. But when you hear, everybody gonna say, "Oh, we know you full."
We know your word no good.
I gotta take this call. Just keep going. I gotta take this answer.
Okay. So, also number 4, we talked about work ethics. Now we're talking about how to express ourselves. So when it comes to expressing ourselves, it's very important. I was just talking to somebody the other day about when we express ourselves. There's so many things that go into it. Tone of voice goes into it. The words we choose go into it. Our nonverbals go into it. All those things are communicating to the other person. Oftentimes, even when it comes to our kids, we have to teach our children how to express themselves by how we express ourselves, because that's how they learn. But if we express ourselves as fathers, because we're talking about fathers today, if we express ourselves as fathers in an inappropriate manner, then how do you think our children are going to express themselves? Mm-hmm. Those are the things. If as a father you're trying to teach your son to be responsible, but yet you conduct yourself in an irresponsible way, it makes it hard for your child to be able to accept that from you, because what they're seeing or what they're hearing does not add up to what they're seeing. Yes. If that makes sense.
And we're dealing with, with years of mayhem. We're dealing with years of mayhem of knowing how to express ourselves, because we wasn't taught how do a man express himself when he's feeling like he's not one. We don't even know. We haven't even known how to express ourselves when we had fathers, because some fathers was in the home, was living there, but they weren't actually physically, mentally there, emotionally there. So we had it's like a conglomerate of different issues that we had growing up in our community. Why we're having these issues and why we're having these conversations. These conversations are not just to be had; they are actually for implementation that we can make the necessary changes that we need to do, because it takes a man to show a man how to be a man. Mm-hmm. And only way for men to understand what it is, all men are gonna have to rise up and take responsibility for what we didn't learn and what we trying to learn. Yes. A lot of times a lot of men ain't even trying to learn something different. Mm-hmm. We cannot constantly keep staying in the streets and think it's going to help our families become productive families. Right. We gotta take it out of the streets, because we notice that the street doesn't have no love for nobody. Mm-hmm. It hasn't showed us everything it showed us was nothing but death and mayhem. And unforgiveness. It gave us nothing. Only thing I can say, one thing about the street, it did give us a code. And some codes did have a lot of laws and policy, but did everybody follow those codes? Because you had two different types of people on the streets. You had some that was leaders, and then you had shot callers. And there's a difference between a shot caller and a leader. The ones who took the shot calling position, he took his power and utilized it to benefit himself. Now the other leaders, maybe they might have some areas that they was bad at. But one thing they did, they said, they told kids, hey, you need to get out of school. You remember that one time you told me about Billy, and there was a guy that, I remember that drunk that used to sit outside Wesley. I remember one time he came out the store. Remember, he came out the store. He had that big old bottle of Everclear. It was like 200 degrees outside. It felt like, and he stood around that trash can and drunk that whole thing and threw it in there. Like, remember that? Like it is show. And he said, "Stay in school," and walked off. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And walked off. Regardless of what we looked at him as, he was a leader at the time. He was trying to promote us to be leaders too. He said, "Stay in school. Don't be where he's at." He didn't say that, but what he was saying, that's what he meant. Don't do what I do. Don't live as I live. And sometimes we might look at that and say, "Oh, well, you doing it?" But we sat down and said, "Oh, I don't want to be like him. I don't want to be no bum." We did say that. Mm-hmm. We had that conversation. When we was kids, we had that conversation. "Oh, I don't want to be like him." And then when he came out, he solidified by saying, after he drunk his drink and looked over and said, "Don't be like, go to school," and then walked off after he drunk that full bottle. Mm-hmm. We learned something. You can learn from a donkey. A man learned from a donkey in the Bible, So, you can learn from fools. You just got to understand. Even some fathers are fools because they took different.
Well, I like that right there, what you said. Some fathers have made a lot of mistakes.
Yes.
That's why I'm worded.
I was one.
Some fathers have made a lot of mistakes, but when you didn't have a father, and as we're talking about, you're a father, I'm a father, but what did we learn about growing up in a father's home? The key is to not allow those things which you experience in the absence of a father to cause bitterness to arise in you, mm-hmm. so that you become an ineffective father as well.
Yes.
And see, sometimes there's so many that say, "Well, my father wasn't around, so that's why I didn't learn this. My father wasn't around, that's why I didn't learn that. My father wasn't around, that's why this happened, that's why that happened. If my father was around, maybe this wouldn't happen, maybe that wouldn't happen." Well, there's a portion of truth to that, but however, at the end of the day, what we must realize is that in that we had choice, mm-hmm. in that we had an opportunity to choose. Okay, yeah, my father wasn't there, so and the way I look at this is that it's like a victim. Okay, anybody who's ever been bullied in school, anybody who's ever been bullied knows what it feels like to be bullied. So when you know what it feels like to be bullied, then you must ask yourself, why would I bully somebody else?
Mm.
So when I present that question, I say the same thing about fathers. When you know what it's like to grow up, when you knew what it was like to grow up in a fatherless home, why would you wish that upon your own children to cause them to be in a fatherless home,
Mm-hmm.
or not to be an integral part of your child's life because you knew what it felt like for your father not to be there.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of how you choose to
And
allow
principles.
those experiences to affect you. You can allow those experiences to affect you in a very positive way, where you take those and you take them as lessons learned, and you say, because I learned this is how I'm going to utilize what I learned. Or you can take it on the opposite end, what so many do, where they're angry, resentful, and bitter.
Yeah.
And they allow that to be their school teacher.
Yes.
And that's what they pass along. Well, my father wasn't there for me, so I wasn't there for mine, and mine are not going to be there for theirs. That's what we call generational curses.
And then you got some fathers who feel like, okay, I sacrificed my life to become something greater, so all they can come in and offer is nothing but financial support, but no emotional support, no physical support, just financial support. That doesn't set well with kids. That's why you got a lot of rich kids acting out.
Right.
So, like I said, everything is fine tuned with checks and balances. We have to check. We have to have a balance of everything we do. And none of us is perfect people or perfect parents. We all all of us are dealing with some type of issues when it comes to our children.
Yes.
And no matter how much we try to pour into the ideal of what I am as a man or a father, your child is going to always remind you that it wasn't good enough, or it's not, or it's not good enough for me right now. I want to learn something for myself. Mm-hmm. I want to make my own choices. I want to go through my own experiences. And so that upsets you because you want your child not to live the same life or go through what you went through, right. But it's their life. And I had to learn that, right. That is their life, and sometimes you have to allow them to go through their life. You just got to be there as a loving parent, as a loving father or a loving mother, and allow them to go through it and be able to coach them through it. If they willing to be coached. Right. Because some of them don't want to be coached. They think you holier than thou, or if you raise them, I always say, when they say spirit of rod spoil the child, they're not just talking about a physical rod, the rod of correction. And correction comes in so many different forms, and how you articulate that rod of correction is very important, because it has to be done with compassion. It has to be done with mere sincerity. It has to be done with a sense of purpose, and it has to be futuristic. And the reason why I use futuristic, because when you're teaching them today, you're preparing them for tomorrow. So your rod has to be that understanding that what I'm giving you today is going to benefit you tomorrow. So that's a futuristic goal. And you got to make them see that goal, even though if they veer off. That's why he said you spare the rod, you spoil the child. He said, but if you raise the child up right, it might depart, but it's going to always know where to come back to, right? So 360 degrees. That's where it's always going to come back to them full circle. They might veer off in the circle, but they was never out the circle. They just made a rectangle inside of the circle, or made a triangle inside the circle. But guess what? They still in the circle because the understanding is there. Right. So we just got to have patience. We're not the ones that can change them. The Almighty God can do all that. So, as long as we implement His will as men, and set some type of an example through His word, and stop letting the streets. Because yes, we can probably impress our children by our child might come up to us and say, "Oh, my dad was a gangster. My dad was out here in the street. My dad did this. My dad." yeah, they might brag about you, but when it comes down to results and it comes down to reality, that child's gonna have to weigh that out and say, okay, yeah, my dad was all this, and I took on his same characteristics, I took on his same traits. Guess where I'm at? In the same place where he was at 25 years old when he was 25 years old, 30 or 40 years old. You see what I mean? So we you know, we have to, and I'm not saying that because I was the oldest child, I had to find myself. I had brothers and sisters under me. It was hard to try to be a leader to them when I didn't know whose I was. So they was upset with me because I didn't know me. They was depending on me. I was trying to find myself. I was the oldest grandchild on both sides of my family. I'm the oldest grandchild. So I didn't have no older people ahead of me. Older cousins to be over me to teach me something. You know what I mean? So it was like a double whammy on my end. You know, if you want to look at it technically, but I believe God took me through what I needed to go through because I had to. One of my cousins asked me. He said, "Man, you don't think God used you to go through what you're going through so you can come back and give back?" And at first I said, "No, no, I think I was just being selfish." He said, "No, I don't believe that." He said, "I don't believe that." So then I thought about the time when my friend got killed, and the door wouldn't open that whole night. And then all of a sudden that door opened up like it wasn't nothing. I said, that kind of told me something. Maybe so. God did use me. He is using me to do something greater. Who knows? But if he is, I'm honored that he's using me because he could have used someone else. You know what I mean?
And with that, I would just simply say this: when it comes to that, we have to allow ourselves to be examples.
Yes.
We have to allow ourselves to be used. See, there's a beauty in growing up and maturing. Paul said when I was a child, I thought as a child, I spake as a child, I did things as a child. He said, but when I became a man, I put away childish things.
Yes.
And see, because there was a time of learning. There was a time of being a student.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And it was a time to be foolish.
There was a time to be foolish.
Yes.
So it required you to get a whole lot of teaching because you were being foolish, right?
Yeah.
You had this attraction to foolery.
Well, what was the old saying? A hard head makes a what?
Soft eye. And
I brought you in this world, now what?
Yeah. But so when you think in terms of that, you learn to. At least I learned as I got older that I had to be an example. I had to be different. I didn't go through what I went through for nothing.
Yes.
When I think about everything that I went through with, I don't like to refer to him as my stepfather, but for the point of this, for the point of this example, I'll say that. Because like you said, there's a difference between a dad and a father. It wasn't my dad, because he wasn't the reason I was here. And I can't really say he was a father, because he didn't take care of business like that. And there was a lot of things that went into that. So it wasn't that there wasn't a male. There was a male in the home. He wasn't effective. If that makes sense.
So he was a battery with no juice.
Right.
So he could charge up a little bit, right, but he didn't give it his full glory.
Right. Yeah. So when you think about it, but nonetheless, I learned, and I'm gonna tell you what I did learn. I learned that I didn't want to be anything like him.
Yes.
That's what I learned.
Yes. So
I could have grown up and been bitter, angry, resentful. Mm-hmm. Not that I wasn't angry about some things. Not that I didn't feel resentful about some things. And for a while there, there was some bitterness because there was a while there I really couldn't talk about it because I would just get angry all over again.
Yeah. Like we all.
Right.
Remember, we used to have these conversations all the time.
Yeah. So, but I matured to a point where I said, you know what? I'm going to use what I went through to benefit somebody else. Not only to benefit my own kids, but to benefit someone else's kids.
Yeah. And that's what men do. That's what men do.
Yes.
You have a lot of boys who's trying to, who like they said, wolves dressed in sheep clothing. You have a lot of boys who try to present themselves as men when they're really boys.
Right.
They have no maturity levels yet. They have not matured in areas that, because they don't know when to they don't know how to replace street with truth. Truth.
There you go. Yes.
And when truth comes in, it settles. You know how you go to a pond and you walk and the pond looks clear. As soon as you start walking, it gets muggy, it gets dirty. Then you got to wait for a while for it to settle back down so it can clear out again.
Man, pause for just a second. I want you to keep that thought. That as we're going into number 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to, and number 6 reads this way so that everybody can follow. How to stand up for ourselves using logic. Continue.
And as those times as you're going through the water, it is becoming murky because it is being disturbed. Some things inside of you has to be disturbed because God is disturbing something in you. So then when the time is right, everything settles, and then you become clear. You have a clear vision, a clear sense of purpose.
Right.
And that's where we're at right now. Yeah. That's why I said, I'm a father, you're a father.
Right.
What has it taught us? But being in the fatherless home. We don't want to be like the fathers, those men that was in our home.
Right.
The dirt never settled.
Right.
In them.
They weren't the seeds that we needed.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
they were. To a degree.
They provided the seed that gave us a lesson.
Yes.
To a degree, they provided a water.
Mm-hmm.
They gave us a lesson.
Yes.
But the beautiful thing is that God took that seed of experience, that water of experience, and he provided an increase because only God can do that.
Yeah.
So he took what we learned and allowed us to be able to learn from that, helped us learn from that, and then helped us to apply it in our lives, which is now we're able to be more effective, more effectively used to help others.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's why we're here today.
And that's why we're here today.
Under the WUAO banner, because we're able to understand that what it takes. If that man would have came in the house and worked as a with my mother and said I would help our situation, because what we're going through right now, it is affecting us. If he would have thought like that, we would have been in a better position. But like I said, he was baptized and sanctioned from the streets. So when he came into the home, everything he ministered was from street mentality. He didn't have nothing else to give. He didn't have a lot. All my mom can get from him was that he was knowing how to throw his hands in the streets. Mm-hmm. He can fight. And that was the only 1 part per million of security. Security goes many direct. It goes to 4. I'm just gonna give it this. I'm gonna say security has to be 4 walls. It has to be support. It has to be understanding. It has to be love, and it has to be providing. I'm just giving you 4. There's really more than that. I'm just giving you those 4. Those are walls right now that can protect, that can give that child at least something till he can put his bed in and lay down and go to sleep at night. That was not there. When I went into my room, I went in there not with the sense that this man was there for me. He was there for my mother. I was crying in my bed every night and plotting to kill this man. And that's the things that we have to understand. That's why I said you got to know the difference between the dad and the father.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, but that's why we're having this conversation, because I think this is going to help. I hope this help a lot of young women too,
Yes.
because a lot of young women need to hear these type of stories. And this story is not just, we're not going to just go, I want to make sure we get this to the understanding. We're not women, so we can't really speak for women, but on our experience of my growing up with my sisters and the stuff I hear, I can give some type of ideal how it affected my sisters in that arena. You know, my sisters and them was looked upon and preyed upon by a man that my mom was dating. Now, you know, that's important to understand that, we have to be careful. You have to be careful who you allow in your house and who you're allowing in your bed. Yeah, he might be good in the sack, but once he's good in the sack with you, he's trying to be good in the sack with your daughter or your son. Because some people have a fetish, an appetite, a strong appetite, a strong fetish for control. It's not about he wants to just have sex with her. It's about controlling the whole house, the whole narrative. He wants to see that he can go touch your daughter or your son and you're going to take his side no matter what. That's the sense of control that man wants. He wants to feel like, oh, well, I'm slinging this thing that bad, well, she going to turn on her own kids. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. This is why we're having this conversation. This is why this topic came up, so we can all understand. Because this topic ain't just for those men I'm talking about. I have to be like, because I might get married to a woman that has kids. So I'm talking to myself too, because I want to make sure when I go into a life of another kid, I want to make sure I'm a man, a father, if I'm going to take that role. That's going to stay in the father's shoe and ain't going to go in the house trying to take control or do some violation to anybody in the house. I want to come there to enhance the home and not steal or rob from the home. Because they said a thief comes from the back door. He don't always come from the front door. And sometimes he does come in the front door smiling and bearing gifts.
Guests come to the front and thieves come to the back.
Or maybe slip through a window.
Or they'll slip through a window that they left unlocked after they'd already been in your house.
Yes. Remember we were talking about the vampire.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do nothing unless you allow him in.
Allow him in. Give permission.
You know.
And that's where, that's where the logic is so very important. We have to think before we do. Mm-hmm. We got to process, and we kind of talked about this last week and the week before. We talked about information. You want to make sure that the information that you're processing, when it comes to logic, is accurate. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then you don't want to be processing bad information.
Yes.
When you're making a decision. Okay. So in order to make an effective decision, you gotta have the information. Like you said, the old saying, information is power. You gotta have information.
Yes.
You have to think. You have to process and think. Okay, what do I need to know? What action needs to be involved, and what action needs to be excluded? Okay, what helps me reach my goal? What works against me reaching that goal? So when you're prioritizing and deciding what you're going to include, this is all a part of logic. When you're deciding what needs to be included and what needs to be excluded, and that's how you reach goal. That's how we talked about this before. That's how businesses, that's how visions come to pass through those mission statements.
Yes,
because they've already predetermined what they're going to include in that mission statement. Mm-hmm. Those mission statements are chosen specifically.
Mm-hmm. Identifying markers, so you can identify when you're starting to fail.
Exactly.
You can go back to the vision, go back to the board of the vision, and it will get you right back on track. Exactly. So, like if you was a mother or a father, if you was a father, even if you was a single father, and you allow a wife to come into your home, and you got children, and she doesn't like your children, but she wants you to love her children. That's the problem too. It ain't just one way street. It's a two-way street. You know, these things happen on two fronts. Ignorance don't have no prospective person. It goes wherever it gets allowed in.
Yeah.
So we have to understand that, you know, we're dealing with a lot of hurt people who loves to hurt other people.
Right.
And sometimes you get with a person that's hurting, and then all of a sudden they want to turn around and hurt you and yours. You know, that's why I said, you know, be true to thyself. Is that what the elder used to say?
Yeah. To thyself be true.
To thyself be true. And when you're true to yourself, and never go into a relationship expecting that the other person is supposed to make you happy. Marriages have failed because people think that marriage is about being happy. A person's supposed to keep them happy. No, it doesn't work that way. I'm sorry. I don't know where you got what fairy tale book you read. Happiness belongs to you, yourself. The other person just compliments your happiness by doing what they supposed to do as a partner, as a helpmeet.
That's where choice goes at.
Yes.
See, so people say, well, wait a minute, I'm in a relationship that I'm not happy in. Okay, you're in a relationship, okay, that you're not happy in, okay, well, that's not working. In other words, the operative word was compatibility. Okay, it's not really about being happy. It's really about being compatible.
Yes.
You know, but oftentimes, because we're so focused on the physicalness of the relationships, okay, oh man, he's got this, he's got that, he looks good, this, that, and the other, she's got this, she got, you know, you're looking at things, the physicalness of that person, okay, instead of determining whether or not you're even compatible.
Yes.
And see, that's where relationships fail. When people are not compatible, you're not even going the same direction. The only thing that you have in common is being jumping into bed with each other. But after you have done that, you realize you have nothing in common. You realize that your conversations are not even the same. You don't even like the same music.
Yeah.
You
don't like the way they eat.
In the same way of raising children.
Yeah.
You
find out you don't like the way they eat.
Yeah,
you don't like the way they smack. You don't like the way they
move
brush
their
their
toes.
teeth. Yeah.
You know, they move their toes a certain way, you irritated instantly. You don't even like their laugh.
Yeah.
You know, you realize all these things after you jumped in and applied no logic, just all emotional driven based on, I saw it, I thought it was beautiful, I had to have it. That's exactly what Eve did.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I saw it, I thought it was beautiful, I had to have it, but I didn't think about the trouble that came with it.
Yeah.
What it was that I thought I had to have.
And it was already instructions already there before she went there, and she voided the instruction because her lust for it was so more desirable than to be obedient to the word.
Right.
You know, and sometimes we get we go against the grain because we want something so bad, which is learn to deal with the consequences once you go for it.
Right. So that's where we really must stand up for ourselves by using logic.
Yes.
Okay? As we go on to the next one, how to hold down our families.
That's the important part. A lot of times we don't know how to hold down the family. You know, we don't know how to hold the forks down because we're too busy we're too busy about self. A lot of people go into relationships about self. You can't hold a family down or hold the forks down in the family if it's about self. It's all about what you getting out of the deal, how you getting pleased, and how things benefiting you. You know, this is a united front. When you go into a war, we got the Army, Marine, Air Force, and Navy. Then they have the administrative staffs, which is the president, vice president, secretary, your joint staff, all them, Congress, all them making decisions while you out there in the field, and you have to operate amongst what these other forces. Air Force thinks differently, Navy thinks differently, Marine thinks differently. Army thinks differently.
Then there's that new one.
Huh?
They got that new one.
Oh, well, they got a new one.
The fifth branch.
Oh, they got a new branch now. Oh, AI, new technology.
If somebody brings it up before I do.
What they said is a new branch in the military. I think it's the AI thing where they're using more.
No, it has something.
But within these branches, each branch is under one code, which is called the uniform code.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the conduct comes in at.
Right.
But they are separate entities. But they have to operate under the uniform code. Then they have to operate under the Geneva Code.
Space Force.
Space Force, huh?
Space Force. That's what it's called. So we got the Army, Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, Space Force, and Coast Guard. So we left out Coast Guard.
Oh, Coast Guard too.
Coast
yeah.
Guard, but then it's, like I said, that new one was Space Force.
Okay. So we see we got all these new branches and stuff. So, but they all operated. They all supposed to operate for the safety and the protection and the unification of the of the country that is representing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and in these things, there's rules and guidelines that have to be implemented. So when they call those rules and guidelines when they're going out to war, they call it the Geneva Code. So they have to stay under the Geneva Code. So within that Geneva Code, that means there's things that they can do and things they can't do. Now, in war, you would think that how you gonna have code because it's about winning by any means necessary. And other countries don't follow Geneva, but the powerhouse has to follow the Geneva, technically, supposed to, because they are supposed to be the fathers they're supposed to be policing the whole country, whole world.
Well, I guess I look at it this way: if a father talks to a child, when by whatever means necessary,
Mm-hmm.
you're opening a can of worms. You're opening for your child to operate not from a sense of integrity
Or morals. Mm-hmm.
but operating from a sense of self.
Yes.
No matter how you have to win, you win. That's what's wrong with the system today.
Yes.
Because people take shortcuts. It's like the rules only apply when they apply to somebody else, not when they apply to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with a father in his home. Is that if the rules apply, the rules got to apply. Because if the rules don't apply, because you have to be the example setter of those rules in order for them to apply.
Mm-hmm.
They don't apply when you want them to apply. If you tell your child he can't smoke weed in your house, but yet you smoking weed in the house, okay? So then your child will look at you like, wait a minute, now you smoking weed in the house, so what's wrong with me smoking weed in the house, Or if you tell your child, hey, not to be drinking alcohol, whatever the case may be, but yet that's what you do. And I only, like I said, that's not picking on anybody or anything like that. I'm just simply saying is that we have to model what it is that we want to see. It's the whole point that I'm making. As fathers, we have to set the example for our children. You want your children to be respectful to their mother. You show them how to respect their mother.
Yeah.
You don't call their mother out of her name, hit her upside her face, upside her head, tell her she's stupid, fat, and all these other crazy things that sometimes some men do to their wives. But then in the next breath, you're telling your son that he's got to respect his mother. How can you tell your son to respect his mother when you don't even respect his mother?
Yeah.
So these are things, we have to, my whole point is that we have to understand how important our role as fathers are as examples.
Yes.
You don't, that power is not taken. Power is given.
Yes.
Okay? Respect is not taken. Respect is earned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that we have to remember. When you want your child to respect you, then you earn that respect. And the way you earn that respect is by being an example.
I always say respect is given too, because if you give what you want, in return, then there's no need to have to have a respect for. You have to have respect for them because it's automatic giving. I'm gonna give you if I walk up to you and I say, I'm a man of integrity, you're a man of integrity. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give you that respect because I'm a man of integrity. Mm-hmm. Now, once you violate me, then you have to earn that respect back.
See, that's my point, right? See, that's the point right there. You just said it. See, you're going to give me respect based on how you see respect. Mm-hmm. Okay? And the way you see respect, I may not see respect. Mm. Therein lies room for the violation to take place. So now, if you cross a line with me, mm-hmm. because of how you believe you're being respectful, but yet I don't like the way you're respecting me, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I educate you and I set the boundary with you and I say, hey, and I don't really care for that.
You know, okay? It's funny you said that because, you know, I was going into a store one time, mm-hmm. and there was this old guy from down south. Mm-hmm. I was coming in the door and I was holding the door for, oh, here, I got the door, buddy. Don't call me buddy. He got furious because I called him buddy. Mm-hmm. So then I was coming out the store and I was upset. I'm like, hey, man, you flipping out on me? So I was coming out the store. We was in the store rolling around. So I guess it must have ate at him. Mm-hmm. So then when I was going out, when we was in the parking lot, he said, hey, young man, come here. Let me talk to you. He said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, why did you call me buddy? I said, well, it's just a figure of speech to me. I said, you know, I thought it was a way of respect because I didn't know your name. He said, no, when you call me your buddy, that means you call me a friend. I'm not your friend. I'm not your buddy because I don't know you. You don't know me. We probably don't even live on the same, we probably don't live on the same earth when it comes to our way of life. He said, we maybe don't like the same things. He said, how are we going to be my buddy? I said, okay, I understand. I said, so what should I have said to you? I said, to give you that respect since I didn't know you. He said, you know what? I don't know. I'm about to think about that. He didn't even know after that point. Mm-hmm. Either the name I call him, it might have been offensive. Mm-hmm. If I would say, hey, how you doing, young elder? Or he got mad because I called him elder. Mm-hmm. You know, you call a woman grandma, oh, you a grandma. I ain't no grandma. You know, so it's like people, you know, people take words and make it something.
And so again, you know, like now me personally, my saying, you know, is sir. You know, if somebody's around my age, if I can tell they're around my age, I might say bro. You know,
and some people elders don't want you to say sir and yes ma'am no more.
But and so I would ask them, you know, it's like, hey, you know, don't call me sir. Okay, well, what do you want me to call you, mister? You know, I mean, I'll ask them. Yeah. You know, why? Because while I'm in the way with them, that gives me the opportunity to correct that.
Yes.
Okay, if I wait until they're gone, now the good thing is that he sought you out to correct that.
Yes.
Okay, now you understood. Okay, now you got the lesson. You were able to get the lesson because he took the time to give you the lesson. He took the time to let you know why he was offended.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But what if he had gotten in his car and drove off? And you would have never thought, man, you've been telling the story, man, I held the door for this guy, opened the door for him, said, buddy, and man, he lost it. You would never know why he lost it.
And you know what? And he would never know if he never see me again. And he was feeling a certain way. So it was a 360 degrees of understanding that had to come back around full circle. And what these experiences is how we develop.
Yes, that's how we mature. It's how we learn to listen to each other. Mm-hmm. And see, and that's the thing is that, so as a father, you know, the subject we're talking about today, it's a back and forth.
Yes.
It's an open, especially with fathers and their sons, daughters, whatever. It's an open line of communication that you want to have with them, where you allow them to talk to you. Mm-hmm. You may not like everything they have to say. You may not agree with everything that they're doing, but allow them to talk to you, because if you just allow them to talk to you, what you do is you open up that line of communication. They'll continue to talk to you, and you'll always have a inline, inside track with them to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you judge everything that they say, you judge everything that they do, then they're not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
And so now you don't have that inside track. So it makes it impossible for you to be an effective father in their life because they're not communicating with you now.
Yes.
They're communicating with somebody else.
You know, that happens a lot, you know, in our communities, you know, within our family structures, family dynamics, especially when we living in two different homes, trying to raise our children in vast houses. And, you know, you can't be a totally efficient father if your children aren't living with you. You can be the best that you can be, but you're not working at your full potential because there always is you know, there's two posts and each post has room for it to get for electrical or water to go from one post to the next post. They call that, as long as that pole is able to get here, to get there, that's called full potential. It's able to get to its full potential to light up this light bulb over here. But you cut that wire or that pipe in half, it stops it from getting to that post and from this pole. So that means it's not at its full potential. When we're in two different homes, it's not going to be at its full potential, but it's at a potential. If the two parents is able to still work together, because you can bridge a wire over, what they call pigtail a wire over,
right,
to cause it to get that potential, to get that connection again.
right.
And or you can put a cufflink over the pipe to cause them pipes to come back together. That's the bridge. We just don't. We got to understand the pigtail and the cufflink idea when we talk about raising kids in different homes.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot allow that split in it, because mother and father are the posts. And long as them two are communicating, or they're able to communicate when their child is doing something, or it needs reassuring that, you know, maybe I can't get them, but dad, you need to go talk to your son or daughter, or mom, you need to go talk to your daughter, because there's certain things I can talk to her about. I can't. That's reaching its full potential. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And we don't have that enough in our community. And when we do, we should make light of that so everybody can see that this is important in our community, and then our kids can be we gotta not make it a mimic separation period, but that's neither here or there right now. But we gotta make them make sure you know who you going to go have kids with, and who you going to say I do with, because each candidate must know their potential, that the potential is that we want to make this thing last, because this is not just about what I feel today, then I'm going to change my feelings tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It always happened that way. We got to know that we have to constantly grow. We're going to constantly be changing amongst each other. We're going to constantly need to be chiseling. We got to take a hammer and chisel and carve what we want out of each other. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to feel good when you chiseling at somebody. If you can ask clay and ask it how it feels when it's being shaped and molded and put through fire, if it can talk, it will yell and scream and tell you how bad it feels. But guess what? When the end result comes up and it becomes a beautiful figure, it is able to be. That's when it becomes priceless, because it had to go through what it went through. Gold and diamond and all that has to go through fire. It has to be tested through fire. And how you think it got its value? Because what it went through. Mm-hmm. If it didn't go through none of that, it wouldn't have no value. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't be durable. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't stand. You couldn't tell if it stand the test of time. You wouldn't see if it. How can you put value on something that might die tomorrow, or might rot out tomorrow? Mm-hmm. You put value on things that can last, and you can keep re-innovate, and you can melt it down and re-sculpt it into something else. That's what gold can do. That's what diamonds can do. You can.
So what you're talking about, if I'm understanding correctly, you're talking about the value of unity.
Yes.
You're talking about the value of how everything works together to bring about an end result.
Yes.
That's value.
Yes.
And so when you apply that mindset or that line of reasoning to relationships, whether it be a husband and a wife,
A father and a child.
We're talking about a father and a child.
Yeah.
Father and children.
Father in the household.
Every decision that one makes ought to be with the focus of unity in mind.
Yes.
And it's that goal that you're aiming for always, of that unity in mind, the unity of the family in mind, that guides your decisions. So when you realize that a decision that you're about to make is not going to bring about unity, you 86 that decision, and you replace that decision with a different decision.
Yes.
That it is going to bring about unity.
Yes.
And that's how you reach a level of maturity.
And that's what fathers are supposed to bring to the table, because we are supposed to be the one that holds the family down and keeps the family together.
Right.
That's why our shoulders are broad.
We got to be the quarterback to this thing.
You know what I mean? And it is a lot on the father. And a lot of times we don't realize, I don't think kids and mothers don't realize how much weight is on the father's shoulder, because when the home fails, who you think they blame?
Right.
They blame the fathers. If the lights get cut off and the dad is in the house, who do you think they blame it first? The father. If the car breaks down and the father's in the home, who do you think they blaming?
How come the father can get it fixed?
Why that man? Why that nigga?
How come he didn't fix them?
How
come he didn't fix that?
And then sometimes they won't even call you a man; they call you a nigga. No, be honest. You got that nigga laying up under there and they ain't doing nothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So it's always our shoulders. That's why our shoulders are wide, because we have to be able to hold the world on it, and it's hard.
It's not easy.
It's not
easy because it's a lot of responsibility.
Yes.
So the very last, we'll talk about the last one, which is number 8, and that is it safe to say that not all our experiences were all bad, because we had uncles, older cousins, and grandparents and neighbors that pitched in when needed?
Yes.
So, and that, in the absence of a father, for whatever reason,
we have a village.
We had a village
mm-hmm.
of people that stepped in. I mean, we had, I think when we were growing up, we spent a lot of time over there talking to Mr. Corbin.
Mr. Corbin was and Uncle Ray.
Yeah, we would have these conversations with these men, and as we were having these conversations with these men,
Mr. Peoples,
we were gleaning information. Now, not saying they were always available.
No. Okay. But they gave us what we needed.
Gave us something.
Yeah.
Yes, they gave us something we could use, and that's the beautiful thing, because that meant you had many sources to draw from.
Yes.
Okay. Because the beautiful thing of collaboration is that everybody that's a part of that collaborative team brings a different perspective.
Yes.
They bring a different point of view. So when they're bringing a different perspective, they give you a different point of view. It gives you more sources to draw from.
Yes.
So you're not just approaching life from one point of view or from one perspective, but you're approaching life through multiple perspectives, and you realize that there's choices out there, and you may not do it the way that this person does it, but you may do it the way this person does it. But at the end, and because this works for you, that doesn't necessarily work for you, and that's okay. Yeah. But you still, in the end result, you still reach the goal, and that is good.
And that is an important thing. And I want to clear something up. Even if you've done something for somebody, and somebody didn't pay you back the way you wanted to, didn't give you the way you needed it. we are at a point that we have to understand that doesn't mean that we have to hate each other. That don't mean we have to stay away from each other. That don't mean we have to ignore each other. You know, that means that we just need to have more effective communication. And when we was growing up, when our fathers wasn't there, other people in the community stepped up. They came in, provided communication. They networked with our parents. So when our parents wasn't around, that our parents felt secure that someone was there to watch over us and to make sure that they had our best interests.
Right.
That was why effective communication was important, because when those, like I said, when our parents wasn't there, they was able to get that information from the neighborhood or the community or aunts and uncles or cousins and say, oh, okay, I went and checked on the kids. The kids is fine. I made sure they got in the bed at a certain time. I made sure they got in the house. That was effective communication.
Yes.
And you didn't have social media all the time. That means people had to go to them and talk to each other.
Right.
We're missing that point right
missing
there.
That.
And when you talk to somebody face to face, it's different than just sitting there texting.
Right, because you don't see emotion, you don't hear the changes in the voice tone,
Mm-hmm.
You don't see the body language. You're missing on all that, because all that is part of effective communication.
And you don't get a chance to see a person driving over, going out their way to go over there to check on your kid.
Right.
Now they just get on the phone and say, oh, text, hey, where you at? Oh, I'm at home. Oh, okay.
And you just believe that.
And you just believe it.
So you didn't see it with your own eyes.
Yes.
You didn't go over there and use your five senses to determine whether or not what they told you was true.
Or you got over their house and you see the boys running out the window, jumping out the window, or girls jumping out the window, and that was the reason why that's why I consider it more effective, because they was able to go and see what was going on. So
they were able to go and hear what was going on. They were able to go and smell what was going on.
Exactly. So there's a lot of different factors that goes along with that. So we fell short of Babylon. We did fall short of Sodom and Gomorrah, but we don't have to stay in hell when we know we have a God of mercy. We have a God of love. That's why He gave us instructions.
Yes.
And as long as we know how to utilize these instructions, I think that we can be redeemed.
Yes.
But it's up to us. We already violated one of the greatest commandments: love thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, and then love our neighbors, our brothers and sisters. We violated that to the fullest. If you want to say you broke a commandment, that's one of the commandments. If you want to hear what Christ saying, Father, forgive them for what they know not what they do. Because a lot of times people don't even know that they violating the two greatest commandments.
And people have to really want to learn.
Yeah.
No one can fault you. No one can really fault you for not knowing, but people can fault you for refusing to learn.
Yes.
So what you don't know, you learn. What you don't have, you go get.
Mm-hmm.
It's no difference if you were about to attend a wedding or something like that. You went out, you bought shoes, you bought a shirt, you bought pants. It's the same thing when it comes to knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay? What you don't have, you go get. Whether maybe you can't get it at home, maybe you can't get it from your father, maybe your father's absent. You can go get it from another father. You can go get it from a neighbor. You can get it from an uncle. You can get it from you don't have to go without.
Yeah.
If you're resourceful, just like we're resourceful to get the things that we really want, the things that are really of value to us, then we need to be just as resourceful when it comes to those things that we need.
Yes.
We gotta stop sitting around making excuses and licking our wounds all day and being defensive and angry and resentful and not doing something about our situations. So just because there's not a father in the house doesn't mean that you have to suffer from being in a fatherless house, because you can still go get that information elsewhere if you really want it.
Yeah.
So that's just my piece on that.
Well, and then an effective listener and an effective communicator. If someone is having a baby shower, and they realize the person illustrated or stressed that I don't got enough formulas, I don't got enough Pampers for my child to come, and then you come bearing fruits and wine and something that's all off the scale. That's not effective for what is actually needed for the event that's being taken place. Then what you did, you went against the grain of what the true understanding of what your purpose was at that moment. And I think that's what we have. I think we forget the purpose that we need to have for that moment, for the moments that we're having. We as an hours is trying to talk about the purpose that we need right now. This is why we're having these conversations, because we're talking about the purposes that we need right now. To fix our broken community, we have to fix broken families. And the only way to fix broken families, we need fathers coming back into fruition. We need fathers to stand up, be the men that you are. We need fathers to take a rightful seat back in his throne and say, you know what? I ain't going nowhere, woman. I don't care if you just like me, you feel like I don't love you or not. I'm going to be here and I'm going to fight for this. Or women, we need queens to say, I'm gonna fight for this no matter what. I ran for too long. My feet can't run no more. We got children to raise. Our children are suffering. They dying out here. I'm tired of seeing so many women looking like cheetahs in the face, where their eyes are stained for all the tears that's running across down their eyes because their children is being murdered out here. When are we gonna really take inventory of the issues that we caused on ourselves? And men quit blaming women, women quit blaming men. Fathers quit blaming mothers, mothers quit blaming fathers. It's all of our faults. We all got a role to play in it. If we don't have effective communication with each other, then that's our problem. That's not my problem or your problem. It's our problem. Because if I can't call you and talk to you and try to change something, then there's a problem with us. And we need to address us, why we can't have that conversation. If you get what I mean. Mm-hmm. Why can't we have that conversation? Why can't there be no reconciliation? Why can't there be no redemption in this conversation? Why can't conflict resolution set the center stage in our homes where we can raise these children the way we need to? Okay, we ain't gonna be together. Okay, it's fine and dandy. But let's not put a gap in them two posts where the electricity can't flow. It stops right here. Or maybe it stops up here. Maybe the mother's trying and the father won't, so it stops up here closer to the father. Or maybe it goes over here, it stops closer to the mother. The father put in all that work, but the mother won't allow. It could be either or. It could just be, no blame. But find out where you stand and how much you are willing to allow to make the change. Because you could make the change. It just takes effective communication. It takes resilience to say, you know what, I'm going to put my pain to the side and I'm just going to go ahead for the betterment of my community, the betterment of my family, the betterment of my children, the betterment of my job, whatever. You got to put that aside. Why you can go to work and work side by somebody you hate? Because there's rules and regulations at the job that you have to follow.
Don't get paid.
And so you can go to work and sit side by side on a cubicle next to your enemy and still communicate with them because you're getting a paycheck. And because of the rules and policies there. You can't apply that same principle in your own home or within your family, in your community. That doesn't make sense to me. So that means we need to have people dictating to us how we should act. That's basically what that's saying.
Right.
So fathers, we got to quit going to the street is not your Bible. Quit going to the streets and act like the streets is your Bible, man. It has misled you. It led you down a foxhole to be eaten. And you've been getting eaten on for decades. And you know what? Ain't you tired of coming up with no limbs? You know, we got to change that, man. We got to change that, brothers. You know.
Stop being ineffective and being effective.
Yes. You know.
That the only way for that to happen is for us to be logical in our decision making. We have to think before we do.
Yes.
You know, we cannot afford to allow ourselves to be led by our emotions. That's the biggest downfall of men being when once they get into their emotions and they feel angry, then they allow that to dictate their decisions. You can't do that.
And those are men that's been raised, you know, and these are men that's been raised by nothing but women in the family. That's why it's important to have fathers in it, because fathers teach men how to not to react so quickly without a logical approach. My grandpa taught us never to rely on our emotion. He always showed us through a thought process, and he showed us through thinking. Even when he sat down to have these conversations with us, when he was loaning us money, or when we was working for Piccolo's, when we was working for him, he always made sure that he always told us, we got to be at work at this time. You need to be up at this time. We slept all the way till it's almost time for us to leave and get out of the house. He used to get on us all the time. You want to stay up all night, boy? You know you got to be up in the morning. Remember that? You want to stay up all night?
Over there in the back of that cold truck.
Yes. You know, because we stayed out late, you know, and staying up on the phone and whatever we was doing. Knowing we had to be at work at 5 in the morning. We had to be up at 5 in the morning. My grandpa was up at 3. Yeah, and then we had to run back in the popcorn, spin popcorn. But you know, that was our grandpa. But he taught us what a man was about. You know, you had to get up. If you had to be at work in the morning, you need to take your butt to bed early. He's always say, early bird catches the worm. Remember, he used to always say that. And he said, you going to bed all late, staying up all night, trying to listen to music and talking on the phone, things that ain't bring you nothing. We used to get on us by spending our money all the time. Soon we got our money, we went and spent it on candy. Yeah, and he used to get on us about that. He used to get on us about spending your money. You need a save account, bank account, save your money. Quit trying to spend it up so quickly as you get it. You know, we didn't learn. We didn't listen. Guess what we thought? Oh, that old man don't know what he's talking about. We didn't say that in saying it, but our actions said that. Right. You know, we have to understand some things ain't always said. Some things are through action.
It's not always verbalized.
Yes.
They come to you. They come to your nonverbals.
Yes.
And oftentimes, 90%. They said almost 90% of our communication is nonverbal. Nonverbal.
Yeah.
Nonverbal.
When someone owe you money and they ditch and they running from you, that's a nonverbal response. Because they're too afraid to face you and to say, oh, I just don't have it.
Right. Or I was irresponsible and I spent it.
Yes. Or you wronged your wife. You can't come in the house and say it, so you bring some flowers.
Right. You think that's the fix all?
Yes.
No, it requires a conversation. It requires a very difficult conversation that you may not necessarily want to engage in, but it's necessary to bring about the necessary peace that you're truly aiming for. Flowers can't talk for you. And with
that conversation and with those flowers, it comes with a greater responsibility to cancel out that action. That action cannot be there no more. Mm-hmm. So if you went and did something on your wife that caused a rift, and a rift in the relationship, and you have to go and apologize because you feel guilty because you want to make an amends because you don't want to lose your wife. Change behavior is your greatest weaponry. Exactly. So if you going to keep the same behavior, same thing we talk about community. If we want to thrive in community, we got to change behavior. We got to create change behavior. Right. We can't. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's like I'm drinking poison, then I'm gonna sit back and say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna watch all them people die.
Yeah, you're gonna die first.
I'm the only one drinking it, so I'm the only one gonna die.
Yeah. Those are things that those things, if they're, live by a saying, it's not helping, it's hurting.
Yes.
You know, and I live by that because that's pretty much how I make decisions when I decide whether I'm gonna do something or not do something. I look at the value of that thing, the value of that decision, what is contributing to my life. If it's not contributing something good, then I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yes.
But if I can see it's helping me get to where I'm trying to go, then I'm more than likely to do that. And you know, so that's how we become effective in our thinking,
Yes.
in our problem solving.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. That's exactly how we do it. We're about to close this up. Man, this was a great topic. I'm happy that we was able to present this topic and present some. I hope we presented enough food for thought. And so we can create some change behaviors, so we can see a different outcome in our community. What's your final words?
I would say my final thoughts is just, you know, again, I kind of emphasized this already, but I'll say again, you know, think before you do. You know, and that, I mean, it's okay to feel something about, you know, a situation that occurs because things happen. Sometimes, you know, we're going to feel. It's natural to feel. It's natural to be angry. It's natural to be sad. It's natural to be happy. But when you find yourself being angry, or even sometimes being happy, sometimes, you know, that happiness is temporal. It's temporary. So just because something makes you feel good doesn't mean it's good for you. Just because something makes you angry doesn't necessarily mean it's bad for you. There might be a lesson in it to be learned. There's always a lesson to be learned, whether it's good or bad. Whether it makes you feel happy or whether it makes you feel angry or sad. There's always a lesson to be learned. So I encourage you guys, look for the lesson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, they said love can do a lot of things. It can reshape and redirect and reestablish old wounds that you never thought you could ever get away, that you would never think that you could never heal from. If you took love and placed it in that area where the scar is at, it doesn't. It will heal immediately because it automatically starts working. It is an effective alcohol and peroxide. It kills all the germs, bacteria. It promotes healing, and it becomes the scar that protects the wound, the open wound. And then as it's healed, once it's healed all the way, it is the thing that makes it go back to its original state. You know, that's how you can look at love. I just think that I just wish that we all would view love through those lenses, and understand that it does work in that type of way. Just focus on what we can do as a people to fix us, to change our conditions. We as in ours, love, life, loyalty.
Well,